This is absolutely delicious. And today on the Jamaica Kitchen, I'm going to show you how to make roti. Hi and welcome back to the Jamaica Kitchen. My name is Drew and today we are going to carry on with a dish that we created a couple of days ago. We made a ground beef curry with green peas and potatoes. Absolutely delicious. Really packed with flavors. One of my favorite dishes. But I did serve that dish over a bed of basmati rice. But I also enjoy it with roti. So today I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to make roti. A lot of people are kind of afraid of making this particular dish because it is kind of technical, but it's not as hard as what a lot of other people seem to think it is. So today we have a simple list of ingredients. We have 4 cups of plain flour, in addition to 2 teaspoons of salt. And 2 teaspoons is a good starting point. It's best to know your flour that you're using. Some flours can be saltier than another, but 2 teaspoons is a good starting point. And then we also have 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And before we add our fluids, we're going to add our salt and our baking powder to the dough, or to our flour. So to start off our dough, I just use about a tablespoon or tablespoon and a half of oil, and a slight trickle over into the dough. And then we're just going to mix the oil into our dough with our fingers. Everything is done with your hands. There's no need for any spoons or spatulas to do this particular bread. And I learned this from a lady from Jamaica who is a second-generation Indian. This bread is actually very similar to paratha, which is an Indian bread that's made very similarly, and they use ghee in the bread instead of oil. Alright, so let's now start adding our water to create our dough, since we've now rubbed this oil throughout the flour. So one of the secrets with this particular dough is that you want it to be soft and quite wet, and as you're working the dough you want to also let it rest, and those two things will help you yield a very soft roti, soft and flaky roti. But we're going to add our water now, a little bit at a time, and don't worry if you add too much, because that's why we have half a cup of flour to the side. But as I said, we do want this dough to be soft, so we want it to be quite wet. And typically it usually takes the whole 2 cups with this 4 cups of flour. Yep. Now, kneading the dough and making sure that it's 100% all incorporated. Like this. See, my hands are still pretty covered in dough. That means it's pretty still wet, which is good, but we still have flour in the bowl. But by the time you finish kneading, this bowl should be fairly clean, so should my hands. And it should have a nice sticky texture. Sticky soft texture. You should knead this dough for probably about 2 or 3 minutes. And by kneading it, you want to pull the dough over, so you're creating air within inside the dough. All right. Here's our dough ball, and as you can see, it's nice and soft, still a little sticky, so it's nice and moist. And what we're going to do, we're going to cover this with a damp paper towel and let it rest for at least 20 minutes. Half an hour would be better, or longer, but we're going to let that rest for at least 20 minutes. And we're going to go ahead and cover our dough with this damp paper towel. The longer you let your dough rest, the better product you'll have at the end. Okay, so it's been 20 minutes since we let our dough rest, and as you can see, nice soft dough, still a little sticky, so it's nice and moist. See how soft that is? Alright, so part 2. I'm going to take some flour, and we're going to take our dough and we're going to cut it into 8 even pieces, because we're going to make 8 rotis out of these 4 cups of flour. So they don't have to be exact, but what I do, I cut in half first, and then I take my next section and I cut in half again, and then I cut each of my halves again, so I have quarters, and do the same thing again, cut in half, then cut in half again, and then cut in half again. They're not going to be perfect, but they're going to be close. If you really want them perfect, go ahead and weigh them on the scale. So we're going to take our dough and we are simply going to start kneading inwards like this. Just a gentle kneading inwards, and we're going to make a ball. I'm going to sit that down, do it again. So we're going to start gently kneading inwards like this. And another ball. And we're going to do the same process to all 8 pieces and start kneading inwards. A lot of people I've seen make this don't do this process, they skip it. But I've skipped it before and I've noticed a difference, where it hasn't been as flaky as it had been before when I didn't skip it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of these, and then we're going to cover them and let it rest again. Okay, here's our 8 finished balls, and we're going to go ahead and cover them up with a damp paper towel and let them rest for another 20 minutes or so. You want to drop your oil, just a thin coat, not too much, across the entire surface to the edges, just like this. Remembering that the oil is what helps cause all the flaky layers in our roti. And you take a little flour, which is optional really, as long as you have enough flour on the board that you're rolling your roti on, it should be fine. Adding the flour doesn't hurt. And then again we're going to roll our roti like this, in a circle all the way around. And then, see how many layers we have in there? I'll pull the top up, push it down, inside, do the same thing at the bottom. You're going to push the bottom down, inside the ball, just like this. There we are, that's simple. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of these. We're going to roll them out and we're going to go ahead and start cooking. Okay, our dough balls are rested and we are now going to do our final roll. So by turning it on a regular basis like this, gives you the opportunity to make it as round as possible. Now, depending on you, how thin or thick you like your roti, depends on how thin you're going to roll this out. But I like to go to the penny and dime size on my final rollout, and it also depends on the size of your cooking equipment. There we go, perfect size roti. Alright, let's go ahead and put it on the plate, get the next one, and we're going to do this to all of them. And you can just stack them on top of each other, there's enough flour on them, they won't stick, I promise. Again, keep turning, that way you have a better chance of ending up with a circle. Notice the texture of the dough is different now. Oops. We have more of a resilient dough, slightly tighter than what it was before. A little thick on this edge. Perfect. Alright. Knock off the excess flour. And we're going to go ahead and stack. And we're going to finish these and we'll start our cooking process. Well, traditionally we would use a tawa, which is a pan that has no edges, so it's just flat. And it just makes it easier so you can remove the bread from off the stove and to flip it. But my tawa that I had was too thin on the bottom and it didn't heat evenly across. So I use this cast iron pan and I have really great results with it. So now we're going to have our stove on medium-high heat, and we're going to go ahead and drop our first roti in. Mine are a little bigger than the pan, but it's one of the reasons why I use this. The heat is even all the way across the pan because it's so much thicker than your average frying pan. So we're going to put it in, wait about 30 seconds or so, and you'll start seeing bubbles. You can already start seeing them. See that right there? Little bubbles coming up. And as the bubbles come up, you give it about 30 seconds, and then we're going to flip it. And we're going to flip this about 4 or 5 times, and every time we flip it, we're going to oil it. So we're around about a 30-second mark here. I'm going to go ahead and flip it. Yeah. Get it to lay flat. It's starting to puff. So now at this point, some people use oil at this point. I don't. I like to use butter because I think it just increases the flavor. And we're just gonna oil the top of this with some butter, just lightly. You don't want oily roti. And if you don't like me, where your roti is bigger than your pan, you can always put it to one side and get it to cook all the way across. And we're going to flip again. And I'm going to go ahead and oil this side. Just going to drip it over and then a quick rub. So if you don't want oily bread. And about every 30 seconds you're flipping it until you get it nice and brown the way you want it. And see, it's quite easy to handle. It doesn't tear. If it starts tearing you, chances are you've rolled it out too thin. It's much better when you have a burner that's large and covers a larger area of the pan. That's why I like using this thick pan, because it does help disperse the heat evenly across the bottom. And then we'll turn again. Let's give it a little bit more butter. Some people use ghee. I don't mind using ghee, but ghee does add a distinctive flavor that some people do not care for. So try it first on a couple and see how you like it before you do a whole stack of them, you know. And don't want to leave it in too long, but you do want to leave it in long enough to make sure that that dough is cooked completely. And when you see it bubbling, you know it's right there, because then the steam is actually cooking the inside of the dough. Yeah, see the nice brown bubble spots? That's what you're looking for. Nice even brown bubble spots. Alright, so now right there, this is the end of the cooking process. It is done. You don't have to cook this anymore. And we're going to take it off, and we're going to place it here on a towel. Now you're going to take your roti and fold it a couple of times, and then we're going to put it in your hand, because it's going to be very hot, and then you're going to clap the roti in your hands, and that starts making it break up and flaky. You see that? You see how flaky this is? This is a really good roti. And this is roti. Pretty much. It's hot, so I'm going to be not holding it very carefully. Do you see how flaky that is? And how soft? Alright. Let's do another one. I'm going to fold this back up and cover it with a towel. And then we'll go back and do another one. Here again, we're going to get a roti. And this one's more of a reasonable size. I'm going to put a roti in the pan, wait for the bubbles. Alright, you see the bubbles are coming back up? See the bubbles? Alright, need time to flip it. We're going to flip it over. And we're going to take our butter and drizzle over the top again. Just slightly. As I said, you don't want oily roti. And now it's raising again. And we'll give it a couple more seconds. Move it around a bit to make sure you got even heat. And we're going to go ahead and flip again. And we're going to go ahead and butter this side. And turn it around. Making sure we got even heat. And you notice when you have these large air bubbles here, these are pockets of steam, and this is what's actually cooking the bread on the inside. And we're going to go ahead and turn. And flip again. Alright, we're right there. With a nice brown coating all the way across, evenly. And then we're going to get our towel ready again. And transfer it to our... And this is the same process as last time. We're going to fold it. And then we're going to fold it again. And we'll put it in our towel. And then we're going to clap. And this helps produce the layers in our roti. And there we go. Perfect, flaky, beautiful roti. See the layers? This is hot. I'll lift it up so you guys can see it close. See how flaky that is? That's how your roti should look. And we'll fold it back up, leave it here in our towel to keep warm, and then we're going to go do the rest of our rotis. Here's our finished roti. Super flaky and moist. And here on our plate we have our ground beef curry that we made a couple of days ago. And you know curry's always better a couple of days later. But look how flaky and moist this is. It is absolutely beautiful. It is one of my favorite things to eat, especially with curry. You know, this is good not only with curry, but you could have it with hummus, have it with salad, whatever you wish to have. It is just amazing with anything. Nothing brings through the flavor of curry like a roti. Nothing. It does take several hours to make this, but it isn't overly complicated. You just got to remember to take the certain steps and let the dough rest. But it's worth it. It is worth it. Thanks again for joining me today. Please go ahead and give me a thumbs up and subscribe so you know what I load up next. You guys have a blessed day.